Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to talk real quick about the guy who was stopped in Oregon who had an MP5 for two reasons. One, the comments on the liveleak video to me are pretty crazy, and whenever I read it, I just pray that the people who are writing these are just 15-year-olds who are in their, parents' home, or just really fat, stupid, 30-somethings who live in their parents' basement who don't actually do anything, because the amount of logical fallacies that come out of these people's mouths when it comes to this gun issue in the Second Amendment is, to me, just mind-boggling. And also, I want to talk about the standard of reasonable suspicion again, because there still seems to be so much confusion about it. So first, the facts are some guy apparently was walking along a sidewalk, had an MP5 strapped around the back of his arm and around his back. MP5, according, I think, to what the officer said, it was calibered for 22. And the officer, when stopping him, the focus of the video was that the officer was prepared to deal with open carry people. He had a methodical means of doing this, and he said that he had reasonable suspicion to detain the man. He had gotten a report about somebody who had a gun. I'm going to start with the second issue first. The officer said he had reasonable suspicion, and I'm going to say he didn't, or it's very unlikely that he did. Why? He just simply says, I have reasonable suspicion because in my experience and training, that looks like an automatic gun. And you're supposed to have a certain type of license in order to have that type of gun. Without going into the licensing aspect and whether that was legal to begin with, I'm just going to talk about the actual caliber of the gun and whether or not the officer actually had, specific articulable facts. As we saw in the video, the guy was carrying a semi. It wasn't automatic. So first and foremost, we have the concept here that it's not a definitive automatic weapon. In other words, what the officer saw didn't just mean, oh, yeah, that's an automatic weapon for sure. Alright, so we don't have like a one-for-one, and that's not the reasonable suspicion standard here, but I just want to emphasize that simply having an MP5 didn't automatically mean it was automatic, okay, or that there was any other special licensing requirements. Given that fact, the officer didn't have any specific facts at hand other than the appearance that could mean that the gun was automatic. Just the outside look. He didn't have any information about, someone carrying an automatic. He didn't have any information about someone, firing off multiple rounds repeatedly fast or something like that. All I had were the looks, as you can look and tell. Because, as we evidently saw, the officer's training experience, oh, that could be automatic, was clearly proven as wrong because it wasn't automatic. It wasn't a one-for-one. The officer's training experience didn't discover an automatic weapon. It was semi, so that has to be realized. So, upon taking this gun, it appears that the officer just had a hunch. That's all it was. He had a hunch by seeing that someone had a gun walking around that looked like a gun that could be automatic. He had a hunch that it was. He didn't have facts to know that it really was. He just said, oh, my facts and experience. But when you take a look, the officer looked inside the gun and realized it was chambered not for being automatic, and when he, test fire or dry fires a test run, clearly not automatic. That sounds to me like your typical, just general suspicion based on a hunch stop, not reasonable suspicion. Because why? Any gun almost, unless it's maybe even a revolver, could be modified to become a fully automatic gun, And just because a gun looks, traditional automatic, like maybe AK or AR-15, which you can buy semi-autos in the U.S. without getting, Class 2 federal firearms license. It seems pretty clear to me that all it was a hunch. Like, the officer didn't see a mechanism on the gun from the outside that said, oh, yes, that looks like an automatic gun because it has this mechanism. No, he just looked at the gun, and because the gun looked like, oh, to him that's an automatic, that's reasonable suspicion. I don't think that is a articulable fact that is of criminality. Just the basic look of the gun. Of the gun. I mean, for all you know, you could say that about anything. There are many types of, handguns that can be modified to become fully automatic or have, burst rounds, 3-round fire burst, be gas-powered. The officer clearly didn't have any facts at his hand that he could visibly see that made it automatic. I mean, all he could go is his generality in my experience and blah, blah, which typically you see that in, drug cases. But for gun cases, I'm just not buying it. I think he should talk to an attorney that's in Oregon and seek out a lawsuit and see, what the courts in Oregon have been saying about reasonable suspicion dealing with that type of stuff. Because I'm thinking here, at least from the facts where I come from, in law school I went to, I mean, that would not fly. That sounds to me just like, no different than looking at a black person who has, baggy pants and a hoodie and saying, you know, I think that person looks, kind of suspicious or something. You know what I mean? Like, typically, black people with hoods in this part of town are dealing crack. I think I should, need to go investigate. I mean, it is that, and I only make the analogy just to highlight the underlying facts, that all the officer is seeing is superficial details. He doesn't have a specific articulable fact as to why there's criminality underpinning, what he's seeing. There isn't, there isn't something that's like, oh, this is a logical connector, like this is pure, this is really an element of the crime. He doesn't have it. He has a hunch. Just like, he might have a hunch that, oh, that young black hoodlum is a crack dealer. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Yeah, he saw a gun in the back of somebody's shirt, and yeah, it's an MP5, but clearly not fully automatic. And clearly, how would the officer even have a hunch? I mean, sorry, have a specific fact that say to him, oh, yes, that definitely tells me that's an automatic. And then again, how would you distinguish that from other guns? It's pretty clear that he just made it up. It's complete fiat. He didn't say, like, oh, I can see, like, the chambering from, 5 feet away, that you could tell the way that the pin was, there was, like, a gas chamber part. I mean, you just can't. And so it's clear that it's just complete bullcrap. And really, that needs to be nipped in the butt. Why? Because if that's all it takes, I mean, think about how many different types of guns that could be openly carried, that they could just say, oh, yeah, I have reasonable suspicion because I think that looks like it could be automatic. I mean, really, there's nothing there. So that needs to be fought. Now, two, man, it really pisses me off whenever I see comments like this, but the lively comment videos, comments on the video, I mean, really, as I said before, I hope these people just don't vote, aren't politically active, sit in their parents' basements and, touch themselves or whatever, because they're sitting there saying, oh, how could they use their Second Amendment rights, or how would they do that, blah, blah, they're making us look bad. It's like, what are you talking about? When you're telling people to curtail their use of their rights. It's like saying, oh, you have a right, but don't use it. Yeah, okay, that makes so much sense. I have a right, so I shouldn't be using it because they might take it away. What, are you retarded? Like, I really, you really have to be below IQ on, below average IQ to even spout that. I mean, really, it takes a moron to say a comment like that because it makes no logical sense. If you have a right, the ability to exercise that right is what underpins it being a right, your ability to do something. By saying that you should curtail that right, or by saying that you should somehow suppress it or do it differently, or, oh, using some sort of ad hominem attacks like, oh, you're a wussy, or, oh, you're just trying to show off to that cop. What are you talking about? It's a right. The point of a right is that you're able to use it. You're able to do it, and the government should not be interfering with it. That's a right. I mean, it's like saying, oh, you should speak less because, dear God, we don't want the First Amendment to be taken away. Stop using the First Amendment. Stop publishing works. Stop filming police. Stop writing anything controversial. I mean, it just makes no logical sense, and it's really scary. I mean, yeah, thank you, public education, for dumbing down America, by not teaching critical thinking, teaching mass production. As those who are more privy know, early 1900s, social engineers and big industrialists just wanted a good working class that would just be able to carry out their menial tasks. But in any case, it is mind-blowing. I mean, really, if you're seeing this and you see that type of stuff, you need to call these people out and just say, what are you saying? Like, do you not realize, like, how ridiculous your statement is? Like, that you have a right, so you shouldn't use it, or you should curtail it because you're afraid it's taken away, or, oh, they're just trying to be blah, blah, using some sort of, like, ad hominem attack that, like, like this is high school, like, oh, you're just trying to show your balls, or you're just trying to look big. It's like, dude, it's a right. It's not, you know what I mean? That is the point. The point of your freedom is that you can be free and you can do that, and you should be let alone. So, I hope that this is informing those who are first seeing this, who don't know about these issues, that, these types of arguments, these types of critiques are just logically fallacious, completely self-destructive to the concept of having a foundational right. And really, there's nothing more to it. They're just childish. They're amateur. They're immature. There is nothing about these types of arguments and these types of, jibs and jibes that are intelligent or growing the individual right to autonomy, to liberty, to freedom. I mean, so hopefully, encourage this person to, take some action, find an attorney, Because this just needs to stop, you know? An officer can come make a consensual encounter and say, hey, bud, what you up to? But they can't say, oh, you're just being stopped, just because he has a freaking hunch that, oh, that could be automatic, when it clearly wasn't. And clearly his training experience that he was so clearly sure that he could stop somebody on was wrong. He wasn't carrying an automatic. So clearly the officer was bluffing. You know, the officer didn't catch someone with a fully automatic just strolling along the streets. You know what I mean? His training experience didn't figure that out. And I think, based on his lack of a definitive answer to the guy, that he really didn't have something to be articulate, or something articulated of specificity to say that, oh yes, I can connect that this is an automatic weapon. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay, it looks like, oh, MP5 could be a BB gun, could be anything. You don't know. They just want to stop somebody, and they just want to touch your property and take your gun. Even though it's perfectly legal. And I don't know what the legal ramifications are as far as, you know, federal firearms and open carry in Oregon. I don't. But, I mean, the way the officer was talking, you know, I don't know if he was saying, oh, you have to have a license to show this or that, you know, in order to, you know, open carry the automatic weapons or whatever. But he kind of led on that that was a possibility. Like, in other words, that actually could be legal. So if that could also be legal under, you know, Oregon law, which I'm not familiar with their, you know, gun laws and their interaction with federal gun laws, then why wasn't he asking, you know what I mean, why wasn't he asking for the permit first as well? You know, the first thing he wanted to do was check if it was automatic, and, you know, it's obvious. The officer didn't know what he was doing, and the people who are commenting don't know what they're talking about. Alright, take care, y'all. Comment, like, and I'll talk to you later.